Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're looking for a quick instruction how to weather your own locomotive, please check out video number 41. This video is a paint along / weather along video, meaning that we're both going to weather our own locomotives together. I'll give a lot of additional information and commentary as we go along, with some tips here and there, and sprinkled with some dry humor. So get comfortable, get your material, get your locomotive, and let's get started. So here we are, here's the model. The first thing that we're going to do is actually not on this chart. What we need to do is we need to dull this down. This locomotive has been in the sun for almost 10 years, so it's not going to be this shiny black. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with these colors and then slowly work my way down until it's faded enough to my taste. Then at the same time, I might slowly work in a little bit of darker rust like this, the brownish rust, as everything will have a little shimmer of rust over it. Let's do that first. So I'm actually fairly happy at this stage. See if I can get that on the camera. Lighting is very difficult. I don't want to add a lighter color because I think this will almost do the trick, as it was quite black before, and is definitely a few shades less black than it was. Look at this front side. I think I might skip that. Or maybe it's just covered with natural hobby room dust. And then back where I did it, I might have skipped the exact same thing in the back. Squish it on there. There's always some more here on your work surface. Let's recycle that a bit. So I think this will be the base coat for now. And why do I say base coat? Because I'm actually going to coat this with the matte clear as discussed later. So then we can add the layers and the colors as put here on the chart on the locomotive. If I do that now without coating it, I'll probably just brush everything off and away. And that's not what we want. Let me dare to just add a little bit more, the lighter gray. And just get a softer brush just to get in these corners. You don't want to brush it all away. You want to leave some on there because it creates a nice texture, and that's in the end what we're doing. We're adding texture. Now I'm probably going to leave on quite a lot of this rust on the walkways here on the right and on the left and the top, because these walkways, because it's a cheaper model, they don't have any texture added to it. Normally there should be this metal grid texture there, but there's not. So we're just going to fill that in with rust. So I'm dulling it down here, not with the gray. I'm just dulling it a bit with the rust. There's no real playbook how to do this. Just trying to not touch all the chalk that we're putting on. Let's see. Let's put some more rust down here because that's going to stay on there anyways. And remember, this is just the first layer, the first coat. If we really don't like it later, you can just put more chalk over it in a different color. Okay, I think we're done for now. Don't want to touch it too much. Yeah, great. Just going to put it down somehow. So now I'm just going to do a quick spray with the matte clear coat. This will lock in all the pastels that we use so you don't rub it off later. to the spray booth. And now you can learn from the mistakes I make so you don't have to. Back to the workbench, you see I totally forgot to mask up the windows, so they got foggy with the matte clear coat. As this video is about weathering, we're just going to move forward. It's not going to be easy to clean this. I'll probably have to polish the plastic down a bit. So we'll do that in another video. So here's the results. The first thing you might notice is that a lot of the weathering effect has disappeared. This is normal. The clear coat will take about half of the chalk's coloration off. So that's why we use quite a lot and quite thick. So something will remain once finished. But the overall effect is what I wanted. It's dulled down a bit, has a little bit of a gray, grimy feel to it, and some rust on the plank boards as well. So now let's just move forward and do the detailing and add more grime to it to get the overall desired effect. Now it's time for a wash. Normally I would do this first, but like I said, it's quite a dark model, so that's why I pre-grimed it first. And as it is a dark model, normally I would take a black, but I'm actually going to take a gray. Don't need a lot, just a little bit like that. And as I am in the northeast region, I want some kind of brown in there. A little bit, tiny dot. Don't need a lot of this at all. And then, I don't know, I'm thinking add a little gray. Never done that, so let's just see. And let me just take one of these totally abused brushes. We'll take this one, doesn't really matter to apply it. So as I want a little bit of gray, I'm just going to open it up, just dab a little bit. I'm going to just pre-mix this a bit, see what it looks like. I mean, if you really want to see what it looks like, don't do it on a brown lid. So it's just more just to get the idea. Yeah, that looks nice and grimy. Could be a little bit darker actually. So just gonna get some black. Always shake these guys before you use them. Something like that. Voila. It's a nice little mix. And it's a wash, so we're just gonna add some water. Some people add alcohol. I just like to do the water. How much we're gonna add. These are another great thing from your dollar store, these little pipette things. Saves a lot of hassle and from messing around. Because it's going to be quite a strong wash. So once you get your wash like this, just gonna, another moment of courage. Don't want it to be too wet. Let's just see what it looks like. Just add a little bit more water. Wash was a bit strong. Here we go. Just like that. Plunge it in. Don't be scared. Just gotta do it. You might be thinking, why is this guy still so silver? We'll deal with the exhaust stack towards the end. Be the finishing touch, so to speak. So as you see, you want to go in a vertical motion with your brush strokes. Ideally, you want to go downwards, but because there's this railing here that I can't remove, I cannot go like this. I'll then have a vertical motion in the up direction. That's also perfectly fine. Now, another thing I want to point out is the lighting. Normally I have a studio lighting on when I do my recordings, but as lighting is so important when it comes to weathering and coloration, I actually opened the curtains a bit and let daylight in. Not sunlight, that's too harsh, but just a daylight. And I actually have to work quite fast because at some point the sunlight will turn onto the windows, and I don't want that. So don't worry about all the excess water. Just see there's actually quite a lot. So just get a tissue, soak that all up. We'll do that in a minute as well. Just dab it a bit if it's that much. I don't know if you guys can see that. Here as well. Corner of the roof. And it's not bad if there's a lot of water collecting on these edges, because that's where it would naturally go as well. Just think of the wash as rain. When it rains, you expect your car to be nice and clean, but it's actually far dirtier than it was before. So it's the same with this wash. And as I'm modeling the Pennsylvania area, it rains a lot. So there'll be a lot of grime as such on the model. So now you also see why we do the clear coat. This water would just totally flush away all the chalks. So without a clear coat, you would undo all your work. And on a side note, I don't know if you can see it, but this model looks pretty amazing with this gray on it. It really makes all the details pop. I had a discussion yesterday with a friend of mine. He was asking if this clear coat doesn't take away too much of the details, as it does have a thickness. And yes, it does a bit, but on the other hand, we use this weathering and grime to accent the details. So yes, the details will disappear a bit, but you're going to accent them anyways later. So it's really a non-issue. So at this point, you might be worried about the water that destroying the decoder itself. Don't worry, as long as you don't put the locomotive underwater and as long as you don't turn it on right now, it should all be fine. You'd be surprised how water resistant electronics can be. So now we're going to have to wait until this dries up a bit, but you can already see from the top it's going to be quite cool. So here we're back. The wash is dry, and as you can perhaps see, you can see it best here on the top. It left a residue around all the details. So the details are very well visible right now, which is just what we want. And furthermore, the whole model has lost its black shine. It's lost its blackness altogether. It became a bit lighter, which is what we want for this model, as it is going to be a bit older and sitting around in the sun. So now onto the details. If you remember this chart, but we're now going to look at the details. So we're going to add a lot of rust around the bottom half and the brakes, some more rust here on the shutters, and rust lines where the water would have come down and put some rust down. That will be sharper rust, and then I'm going to do the process again with lighter rust. So what do I mean by sharper rust, and what do I mean by lighter rust? This I would consider as a bit sharper, and this as a bit lighter and also a bit older rust. So I'm going to use both just to blend it in a bit. So what I'm going to do with the first technique is I'm going to get a brush, and I'm going to wetten it as such, quite thoroughly, and then dip it into the chalks, and then this will paint on very nicely. This is going to leave a mark, so you want to be careful and really look where you place the rust. So in my case, I want to do the brake shoes. Now for the wash, if you don't like the wash, you can do two things. You can either wash it again with a different color. So if you don't like the light wash, you can give it a dark wash and you'll probably remove most of the effect, and vice versa. Or you can try to get it off with a wet towel. You'll get most of it off, but it is a wash, so you're not going to get all of it off. So that's that. Now I'm just going to see how much is on there. I'm going to just get it off a bit and do kind of a dry brush technique. You really do not need a lot. And see as well, I'm stroking downwards with the brush. So that's this truck right here. I can get it into the light. It's very difficult to get the light correct, but here you can see very well also the texture that it leaves behind. And that's what you want to get. That's the effect you want to get. So I'm just going to do the other truck. So if you see that you're getting puddles while using this technique, basically it means you're doing it wrong. You should have a little bit less water on your brush. It's really a fine line between dry brushing and applying dry chalks. No detail there, just want to accent it with some extra rust. So don't worry if you don't really like the color or how it's going to dry. So later we're going to apply another layer just of chalk generally on this model in these locations. So if it's not exactly the color you want, that's totally fine. So in my case, I'm going to add a bit more of the, like I said before starting this process. Oh, that's too dark. A bit more of the browner rust color. But if this sits underneath, it will give a nice contrast and shine through. So if you just do the brown, you won't see it enough. And if you just do this color, it's going to be too orangey. So I always find you got to do them both. Now, this is going to take me quite a while, as there is a lot of surface to cover. So just if you get lost, what are we doing right now? We are just adding rust details. I'm not going to paint the entire locomotive rust. I'm just adding the details on all the pieces except for the handrails. We'll do those later. So if I can just give an example of what I mean by that. So let me just give an extra example here. Get the brush, and then you see there's two hinges here on this cabinet. Let's say I want to have a rust streak down off of one of the hinges. Get the brush, paint it a bit rusty, then streak downwards. Just like that. Do the other one as well. If you want to accent it a bit more, just add a bit more, dab it. Just like that. Now I'm going to do that here as well on the pipework. I think that would be a great place for some rust to start accumulating. Bit of a challenge how to dab it down because this railing is here, but that's okay. Start with the pipe. That's a bit much maybe. No, we'll work that out later. That said, I wanted to do some of these vents. Let's see if I can get in between here. This is not ideal to have this railing here. Now, this might seem a lot to you. If you're just starting it out, it might look like, oh, why are you creating this circus locomotive with all the grays and the blacks and the reds and maybe later on some whites, some yellows. Well, you'll see once you spray it with spray can, not that much will be left of it. Just the accent nuance that you need. So the steps back here. So let me just add a few more and then we're going to go on to that last step. So let's do the railings, get some rust on them. Don't want to make them too rusty. I don't want to overdo it. You can easily overdo all this weathering. So I'm just going to dab it on in certain places and also just get the shine, the yellowness off of it and the black that it has. So you see there's no real rhyme or reason to my strokes. It's just random, should be random, rust is random too. So let's try a new technique that I saw someone else do on the interweb. I'm going to get this 0.5 millimeter fancy pencil, sorry. And I'm going to apply this to the stairs right here in the front and the back. Because as this is a switcher, the brakeman and the switchman will be walking up and down here quite often, so it should not be that rusty. Probably be walking on there so much that the rust wears off. So it will be more of a metal color. So that's what I'm going to simulate here. Let me see if this looks okay or not. So I'm just doing it under a 45-degree angle as if there was a metal grit down there. Seems to be looking quite well. Don't forget, if it's too harsh for you, it's going to be another layer of chalks that's going to go on top. Here, let me show you this to you, if you can see that. Just brings a little bit of shininess to it. Might not be everyone's taste, but I actually quite like it. Let me just do a little bit more over there. Maybe do it under the other 45-degree angle. Let me leave that for now, and let me just do the front. They'll be walking here as well. So, getting so much on here right now. And one last piece that I want to really add a little bit more rust to is this step. That's how to show this. Step that is just right here on the back. Don't know for who that is. For smaller people, I guess. Yeah, it's totally rusted out. Great. So great. So that's all the detailing for now. You're thinking, well, that's quite a lot. Well, yeah, actually was quite a lot. Then again, there's a lot of details on here. So what am I going to do with this brush? We don't need it. Let me just clean it. So after all the detailing, what are we going to do now? Well, we're going to add, again, a layer of rust everywhere. We're going to do some sandy color here on the bottom, and maybe an extra color of older, darker rust here on the bottom as well. And then last, add black grime to the top, and maybe try to pencil it down or brushing, and then maybe try to brush the grime down, that grayish grime on the side. Let's go ahead and do that. So here I put on far too much rust color chalk. So I'm just going to brush it all off, just like that. Nothing to see, it's still here. And remember, when we put on the matte coat, a lot of it is going to disappear. So that was all the rust. Now we're going to add some sandish color for the bottom. This might seem quite extreme, but it will all, say, wash away slowly and gently. Then just fade into this more yellowish color that we have in the bottom right now. Still a bit light, but that's okay. So I think I'm going to be quite happy with that. These fans are still a bit orangey in my opinion, and so is this. But I think with the clear coat that will all fade off a bit. There's a lot of rust on here. That's all bueno. Let me just see if I can Q-tip clear this a little bit. Same on the back. So now I'm just going to add a little bit of medium gray as a ballast dust. That would be around about here, halfway point. Oh, that's a bit much. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to actually hold the model without disturbing any of the paint. So that means it's high time to call it quits at some point. It's going to add some more of the dark rust here at the bottom, the way bottom. So that basically means we have three colors. We have the dark rust, then we have the soil color, and then we have more of the ballast dirt color on it. Guess we could have done without the yellow soil color, to be honest. That yellow is not really the color I'm looking for. So the front. And then last but not least, I'm going to do black. A really dirty, grimy black, especially on the top and especially around this area where the exhaust is. This is, I believe, the air intake, so it won't be that much black and grime around there. Let me just start around here so you get an idea where we're going. So it's shaping up quite nice. One last thing I want to do is get a little bit more black streets here. You could even use a bit of a light gray, but I think I'm just gonna, yeah, maybe mix it. Just to add a little bit of character to it. You know, it shouldn't all be the same color. Some of the panels might get a bit hotter than other panels. That's why it could be some coloration on the model. Okay, let's mask that a bit. Perfect. So this is where we stand now, just before we're going to spray paint it. So this is where we stand now before we're going to give it a clear coat. It's very grimy, totally unrecognizable from where we started off. Let's give it a coat. So this is the result after the spray can. As you see, a lot of the effect has been lost. I'll make some nice images later on the layout so you can see it in its natural habitat. I really liked how the rust on the handrails came out here. Nice and grimy on the front, but not too grimy. So what I'm doing now, just to add a little bit more, already started on the top, is to get a wet brush, dip it in the black, and just add more black pigment here around the exhaust. As this is water with chalk, it will dry up just like paint, so you don't really need to put another clear coat on it. I don't want to I don't really want to clear coat this thing 3 times. It's a bit too much. So, and then also I want to do this with the intake here. Just want to make that a bit darker, give it a nice contrast, nice effect. And then one thing not to forget, the top of the smokestack. If you look at the prototypical photos, it actually is silver like this, with just some black at the top. So that's what we're going to try and mimic. I think that will be a fantastic characteristic feature of this particular locomotive. They have that little black smokestack. Now pay extra attention to the inside of the smokestack, because you want that thing to be black throughout. See if I can achieve that with this brush. Yeah, I think so, more or less. So now that looks nice and grimy right there, doesn't it? Yeah, great. So then we have this side left as well. So a little bit more water. So you see here, I did dip this whole area, but I just didn't have enough black chalk on it, so it only picked up in a certain area. So I'll just do that again with some more chalk. So I'm just doing some minor touch-ups now. Just noticed in a few spots there was a bit too much yellow piling up in the stairs, such as here, this middle stair. So I'm just getting a damp brush and just adding some rust to it. The rust can go anywhere. So now the final step is detailing. So what I like to do is I get a very fine brush like this one, and I put some of the bright orange rust color on it. So let me just create a bit of rust. Also want to add a little bit of rust here. It's a bit closer. Let me get that into focus. So what I'll do first, like I said, I dip the brush in the bright orange, a moist brush, just like this. And with my not so steady hand. Put that on like that. Don't worry, it looks very sharp, but we'll come back to that in a minute. And let me add a little patch. Let me see. Oh shit. Let me add a little patch down below. I think that would be nice. Just a little dot. Rust coming through right there. Maybe here under the windowsill as well. Don't add too much. Just like that. And now you think this looks terrible. Well, it does. So, because we need to mute it. So now we need to mute the color a bit because this orange is far too orange. So that's where the other rust color comes in. You just paint over it, just like that. This will give it some real nice character. Just for whatever reason, this locomotive has rust right here, and the next one doesn't. That's what it's all about. See how that almost disappears entirely? That's the effect you want. Now let me do the other ones. So one last step I see a lot of people do not do. I'm just with some paint thinner going to clean the wheels because we have been spraying a clear coat onto them, and that's not really good for conductivity. So how's this going to work? This locomotive is right here, and luckily for me, it has a current keeper. So I'm just going to let it charge a bit, and then slowly move it forward. And then while it still has some battery life from the current keeper, you can see it's already stalling a bit because it's not clean. I am going to get it, put it upside down, and clean the wheels. So I'm just going to see if I can do it like this. Come on, you can see that clear coat really affected the conductivity. So the next pro tip, you might be able to see it here. The connectors that gets power from the wheel to the inside, so the power takeoff, is this piece of metal, and it basically pushes to the outside of the flange on every single wheel. So you need to clean not only the surface of the wheel, but you need to clean also the inside, so that this connecting piece right there that just slides over the wheel gets a good contact as well. So I just cleaned all 8 wheels, and you can see quite a lot of grime came off. You can also see quite of it is from the weathering, as it is not black, but also has some coloration to it. If it would just be grime from normal, track goop, then it would be all black, but you see it's not. So it's good that we did this. Now let's give it a test drive.